It started with a sound no one could name, a sharp crack of glass, a chair scraping, a gasp cut in half. In the heart of Crescent City's Technical Institute, inside a bright, sterile engineering lab, chaos bloomed in the span of a breath. Lena Ward's back hit the counter. Hard. A young man's hand pressed against her throat, his knuckles white with anger. Everyone froze. 20 apprentices stood still, tools clutched mid-air, the hum of the air vents the only thing moving. Lena didn't scream. She didn't struggle. Her eyes lifted, steady and cold, meeting the face of the boy who thought he ruled the room. Logan Price, son of the Institute's biggest donor. Tall, smug, golden-haired, the kind of arrogance built on inherited power. He'd mocked her for weeks, her strict tone, her old-fashioned discipline, her silence about her past. But today, his words turned to fury. He'd failed an assignment, and she hadn't bent the rules. Now his pride was cracking. "You think you can fail me?" he hissed, spit flecking his lip. "Do you know who I am?" Lena's voice came quiet, almost too soft to hear. "I know exactly who you are." Something in that calm pierced deeper than a shout. His grip tightened. The room held its breath. And then, movement. Swift, controlled, devastating. Her hand shot up, seizing his wrist in a twist so clean it felt rehearsed. A snap echoed, sharp as breaking ice. His body folded with the pain before he could process what had happened. Gasps rippled. A wrench hit the floor. In 3 seconds, Logan Price was face down on the tile, his arm locked behind him, his breath ragged. Lena stood above him, composed, her eyes glinting with something ancient and dangerous. She spoke again, calm, precise. "Apologize." No one moved. Logan groaned, his face pressed to the cold floor. "You can't." The pressure increased. His pride cracked like the joint in his arm. "Say it." "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm sorry." The silence that followed was total. Even the air seemed to hold still. Lena released him, slowly, deliberately. He staggered back, clutching his arm, pale and trembling. The apprentices looked from her to him, unsure who to fear more. "Class is dismissed," she said, her tone even. No one argued. Chairs scraped, feet shuffled. One by one they filed out, eyes wide, whispers trapped behind closed lips. Logan left last, his pride shattered, the echo of his humiliation following him into the hall. The door closed. The room exhaled. Lena stood alone among the scattered tools and broken glass. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled. But inside, something old stirred. A muscle memory she'd buried, a life she'd sworn to leave behind. For a moment, her reflection in the lab window blurred. Not a teacher, not a mentor, but a soldier. She pressed her palm flat against the counter where his hand had been, feeling the phantom heat of his anger, the tremor beneath her own calm. It had been years since she'd used force. Years since the uniform. Years since the missions that stripped her name and replaced it with orders. Now, here in a classroom full of privileged kids who thought respect could be bought, she'd slipped. The truth had bled through her silence. Outside, the sun was setting over Crescent City, gold light cutting across the cracked pavement. Students crossed the courtyard, unaware that something irreversible had shifted upstairs. Inside, Lena turned off the burners one by one. The hiss of gas faded. The quiet returned. But the stillness no longer comforted her. It watched her, accused her. Tomorrow, whispers would spread. The mysterious instructor who fought like a soldier. The boy who learned that money couldn't save him. Lena knew what came next. Investigations, questions, maybe worse. But what unsettled her most wasn't fear. It was the strange, dangerous relief of no longer pretending to be ordinary. She gathered her bag, her hands brushing against a worn photo tucked inside, faces from another life, uniforms lined in dust and sand. She closed the door behind her. The hallway lights flickered. Somewhere deep in her chest, something shifted. A heartbeat she hadn't felt in years. Not dread, recognition. Maybe this was the beginning, or the unraveling. Either way, she couldn't go back. As she stepped into the corridor, the security cameras turned, following her movements with a quiet, mechanical whir. Someone was watching, and they had seen everything. In that instant, a quiet life cracked open. A hidden past whispered awake, and the world began to tilt. Because strength, once revealed, can never be buried again. And Lena Ward was done hiding. Morning broke gray and restless over Crescent City. Rain tapped against the tall lab windows, a soft percussion over the murmur of whispers that spread like wildfire through the halls. By the time Lena Ward entered the building, the story had already grown teeth. The instructor who snapped a student's arm, the boy who cried out her name like a warning, the woman with soldier's reflexes. She walked through the corridors with her usual composure, chin high, coat buttoned, eyes forward. Yet behind every locker door and half-shut classroom, she could feel the eyes. Watching, measuring, waiting. The director's office loomed at the end of the hall. Glass walls, framed degrees, the smell of burnt coffee. Dean Parker was waiting, his face drawn tight with something between concern and calculation. He stood when she entered. "Lena," he said carefully, as though her name might detonate. "Close the door." She obeyed, silent, hands clasped in front of her. The click of the latch echoed like judgment. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Please, sit." She didn't. The pause stretched, heavy. Finally, he sighed. "You know why you're here?" "I do. There are witnesses, videos. Logan's father is threatening to pull funding. He's demanding your termination." Her expression didn't change. "Did he mention his son assaulted me?" Parker rubbed his temples. "He said you provoked him, humiliated him in front of the class." "And now he knows humiliation," Lena replied quietly. The dean flinched at her tone, calm but laced with iron. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't afraid. And that frightened him more than anger would have. "I'm putting you on temporary leave," he said finally. "Effective immediately." A flicker passed through her eyes, not surprise, not outrage. Something colder. Acceptance. "When do I leave?" "Now." She nodded once, stood, and turned toward the door. Then stopped. "Dean Parker," she said without facing him. "You've read my file?" He hesitated. "What I was allowed to read." "Then you know I don't lie." Her words hung there like a loaded weapon. He had no reply. Lena stepped into the hall, each footstep a metronome counting down to something she couldn't yet name. The whispers followed, curling around her like smoke. She passed Logan Price near the stairwell. His arm was bound in a sling, his eyes wide, not with defiance now, but confusion, shame, fear. For a second, their gazes met. No words, only a silence heavy with unfinished reckoning. Then he looked away first. Outside, the rain came harder. Lena walked through it without raising her umbrella, water soaking into her coat, her hair clinging to her face. The chill grounded her, reminding her she was still here, still standing, even as the life she'd built began to fracture. Her small apartment waited at the edge of the city, sparse, orderly, silent. She hung her coat, poured black coffee, and sat by the window as thunder rolled over the skyline. On the table lay an envelope she had hoped never to open again, sealed, marked with a faded insignia, Unit 9. She traced the edge with her fingertip, memories rising unbidden. Desert winds, gunfire, orders given in the dark, the sound of her own breath as she waited for the next command. Lena Ward had once been Captain Lena Wolfe, covert operations specialist, trained to survive what others couldn't imagine. She'd walked away years ago, trading battlefields for classrooms, missions for lesson plans. But peace was fragile, and the past never stayed buried. Her phone vibrated. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Ward," a voice said, clipped, metallic, familiar. Her spine straightened. "Who is this?" "Someone who remembers. You left a trail." The line went dead. Lena stared at the screen, her reflection fractured across the glass. So it had begun. She rose, moving through her apartment like a soldier through fog, scanning, listening, instinct returning in sharp flashes. She checked the locks, the windows, the alley below. Nothing. But the quiet now felt loaded, as if the walls themselves held their breath. In the corner, a small wooden box sat beneath the shelf. She knelt, drew it out, and lifted the lid. Inside, a medal, a folded uniform, and a photograph. 6 figures in desert fatigues, faces sunburned but proud. In the center, a younger Lena, eyes harder, jaw set. Beneath the photo lay a letter she had never mailed. "To whoever comes after me," it began, "strength means nothing if it hides forever." She folded it shut, slid it back, and stood. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, fading into rain. Her reflection in the glass no longer looked like a teacher. It looked like someone remembering who she'd been. For years, she had buried the soldier beneath layers of discipline and silence. But yesterday, in that lab, when Logan Price's hand closed around her throat, instinct tore through restraint. The soldier resurfaced. And now, the world had seen her. The knock came just before dusk, soft, deliberate. Lena's breath stilled. She crossed the room quietly, every step measured. Through the peephole, a shadow, broad shoulders, a coat dripping rain. She didn't open the door, but the voice on the other side was unmistakable. "Captain Wolfe," it said. "It's been a long time." Her pulse thudded. No one had called her that in years. She pressed her palm against the wood, heart caught between past and present. Outside, the rain turned to hail, each strike against the window sharp as memory. The silence stretched. Then the voice again, low, almost pleading. "We need you back." Lena closed her eyes. For the first time in years, the quiet wasn't safety. It was a summons. The door stayed closed, but the choice would not. Because some pasts don't fade, they wait. And hers had just knocked. The knocking didn't stop. 3 slow raps. A pause. Then 3 again. Each strike thudded through Lena Ward's chest like a heartbeat she couldn't control. She stood frozen, her palm flat against the door, the echo of that voice still humming in her bones. Captain Wolfe, a name she'd buried under years of lesson plans and morning coffee. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, faint light flickering from the street lamp beyond the hallway window. The silhouette on the other side didn't move. "Who sent you?" she asked, her voice low, steady. A pause, then, "The ones who never stopped looking." Lena's breath caught. She reached for the chain, hesitated, then slid it free. The lock clicked open. When the door swung inward, the past stepped through. He was older now, lines carved around eyes that had once seen too much. Eli Navarro, her former commanding officer, the man who had trained her, trusted her, and nearly died beside her. "Lena," he said softly, rain dripping from his coat. "You look different." "So do you." Her eyes narrowed. "Why are you here?" He glanced past her shoulder, scanning the room with the practiced gaze of a soldier. Then his voice dropped. "Because it's starting again." She didn't ask what it was. The answer lived in the weight of his words. Eli stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The air changed, heavy with the scent of wet concrete and old secrets. He stayed standing, his presence filling the small apartment like a memory too large to contain. "They've found something," he said. "An old mission. One you led. The one you walked away from." Lena's jaw tightened. "That mission was sealed." "Someone unsealed it." Silence fell between them, taut as wire. The ticking clock on the shelf marked each second like a countdown. "What do they want from me?" Eli's eyes held hers. "The truth." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Truth has a cost." "And you already paid once," he said quietly. "But now others might, if you stay silent." Lena turned away, walking to the window. Outside, the city shimmered beneath thin mist, neon lights bleeding into puddles. Once, she'd believed she could lose herself here, in routine, in anonymity, in the rhythm of normal life. But ghosts didn't respect borders. "You came to warn me," she said. He shook his head. "I came to bring you back." Her fingers tightened on the curtain. "Back to what? A life built on orders and silence? I gave everything to that uniform." Eli stepped closer. "You gave everything to protect people who never knew your name. That doesn't vanish because you changed jobs." Lena turned, eyes sharp. "They don't want me. They want a weapon. And I'm done being one." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city filled the space between them. Sirens in the distance, a dog barking 2 streets over, rain whispering against the glass. Finally, Eli reached into his coat and pulled out a small folder, its edges worn. He set it on the table. Inside, a single photograph. A warehouse. Nighttime. Smoke curling through broken windows. And a face. Young, frightened, familiar. Lena froze. "Who is that?" "Logan Price." Her pulse stumbled. "That's impossible." "He's not just a spoiled student. His father's company has been funding covert tech, illegal shipments, encrypted networks. Someone's using his labs to move stolen intel." She stared at the photo, the image blurring as questions collided in her mind. "That altercation," Eli continued. "It wasn't random. He was testing you. Someone sent him." The room tilted. The memory of his hand around her throat, his words full of arrogance. "Do you know who I am?" Now they sounded like a warning, not a threat. "Who's behind it?" she asked. "That's what we need you for." She closed the folder with a sharp snap. "No, I'm not your soldier anymore." Eli's voice softened. "Then what are you?" Lena looked down at her hands, the same hands that had built circuits, graded assignments, and once pulled triggers in the dark. "I'm trying to be human again." He nodded slowly. "Maybe being human means fighting when no one else will." The words struck deeper than she wanted them to, because beneath her denial, something restless stirred. The instinct to act, to protect, to uncover truth no matter the cost. She walked to the kitchen, poured water into a glass, her movements precise, mechanical. "You should go," she said quietly. Eli hesitated, then set a small device on the counter, a black earpiece, sleek and unmarked. "If you change your mind," he said, "this will find me." He moved toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. "They'll come again." Not with Knox next time. Then he was gone, footsteps fading into the rain. Lena stood alone in the silence, the city humming beyond her walls. Her reflection in the window stared back, eyes older, sharper, alive. She opened the folder again. Logan's face stared back. Behind him, the shadow of something larger, a network she'd once helped dismantle, now reborn. Her phone buzzed. An unknown message flashed across the screen. "You can't hide from what you made." Her throat tightened. She typed nothing, deleted nothing. The message stayed, pulsing like a wound. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but growing. Inside, the soldier stirred. Lena crossed to the table, lifted the earpiece, and turned it in her hand. It felt small, weightless, dangerous. She didn't put it on. Not yet. But she didn't throw it away either. The rain softened. The silence deepened, and somewhere, unseen, a camera light blinked red. The past wasn't waiting anymore. It was moving. She turned off the lights, the room falling into shadow. Her eyes stayed open long after midnight, watching the city breathe, counting the seconds until the next knock. By morning, the rain had cleared. But the air outside Lena Ward's apartment still felt damp, heavy, unsettled, as if the storm had retreated only to make space for something darker. She hadn't slept. The earpiece sat on the table beside a half-drunk cup of coffee, its black surface catching the early light. Every time she closed her eyes, fragments of her past played behind them. Desert winds, the sharp crack of distant gunfire, a radio whispering her name. Now the silence pressed harder. Lena stood by the window, scanning the street below. Delivery trucks rolled by. A stray dog nosed through a trash bin. A man in a gray coat lingered too long near the corner, pretending to read a newspaper. Her breath steadied. She stepped back from the glass. They were watching. She dressed quickly, dark jeans, plain jacket, hair tied tight, a ghost blending into the day. Before leaving, she slipped the earpiece into her pocket. Outside, Crescent City pulsed with its usual rhythm. Honking horns, the scent of roasted beans from the corner cafe, voices rising and fading like tides. But to Lena, every sound felt amplified, every movement suspect. At the institute gates, whispers followed her again. Students paused mid-conversation. Some looked away. Others stared openly, curiosity edged with fear. She ignored them, crossing the courtyard toward the administrative wing. Dean Parker waited near the entrance, his face pale, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Lena." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "You shouldn't be here." "I need my files," she said, "and the footage from the lab." He shook his head. "They're sealed. Logan's father pulled every record. He wants a formal hearing." Her jaw tightened. "When?" "Tomorrow morning. City boardroom. Legal counsel present. Let him bring his lawyers." Her tone was flat, unyielding. "I'll bring the truth." The dean swallowed hard. "Lena, be careful. This isn't just about a student anymore. Something's moving behind this." She met his eyes. "I know." As she turned to leave, his voice followed, soft but urgent. "Whatever they think you've done, it's bigger than us." She didn't answer. The echo of his words trailed her down the hall. The archive room was locked, but old habits died hard. A twist of a pin, a silent click, and the door swung open. Inside, dust hung in slanted light. Rows of steel cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with white tags and faded ink. Lena moved quickly, pulling drawers, scanning folders, searching for anything tied to her class, her name. File 9B, Incident Reports, Lab Section C. She flipped it open. Empty. Only a single note remained, handwritten in red ink. "Transferred. External review. Her fingers traced the words, slow, deliberate. Whoever took the files wanted more than evidence. They wanted control. A faint hum broke the silence, the sound of a live feed. She turned sharply. In the corner, a small security camera glowed red, watching, recording. Lena stepped closer, her reflection flickering in the lens. "You already know who I am," she whispered. "The question is, what do you want?" No answer came. Only the low, steady hum. She left before anyone could arrive, moving down the back stairwell, through a service corridor that smelled of bleach and rust. Her pulse matched her footsteps, sharp, quick, contained. Outside, the sky had darkened again, clouds gathering like bruises above the skyline. She walked without direction, guided by instinct more than plan, until her phone buzzed once in her pocket. Unknown number. Café Marlowe. 10 a.m. Come alone. She stared at the screen, the letters cold against her skin. The cafe sat on the edge of the river. Old brick walls, cracked tiles, the smell of espresso heavy in the air. Lena slipped into a corner booth, her back to the wall, eyes on the door. At 10:07, a figure approached. A woman in her late 40s, sharp features, coat the color of smoke. She sat without asking. "Ms. Ward," she said smoothly. "Or should I say Captain Wolfe?" Lena's hands stayed still on the table. "Who are you?" "Call me Sinclair." The woman smiled faintly. "I work with a branch that doesn't have a name." Lena didn't blink. "Then why reveal yourself?" "Because your little display in the lab attracted attention. You exposed yourself, and someone recognized the way you moved. That kind of training doesn't vanish." Lena's throat tightened. "What do you want?" "Not me. Them." Sinclair slid a small tablet across the table. A video played, grainy footage of Logan's father shaking hands with a foreign investor, crates marked with encrypted codes being loaded onto trucks. "Covert tech," Sinclair said. "Black market circuits, stolen from government labs. Someone inside Crescent is laundering the shipments." "And you think I'm part of it?" Sinclair shook her head. "No, but they'll use you to cover it. You're the perfect distraction. The soldier turned teacher, the woman with a secret past." Lena's eyes hardened. "Who's behind it?" "That's what we're trying to learn." Sinclair leaned in. "But you're already in the crosshairs. The attack in your class wasn't random. Logan was bait." The cafe's hum faded. The words settled like frost. "What do you want me to do?" Lena asked quietly. Sinclair smiled. "Do what you've always done. Survive. And when the time comes, fight." She stood, leaving a single card on the table, blank, except for a symbol Lena hadn't seen in years, a circle split by 3 lines, Unit 9. When Lena looked up, the woman was gone. The walk home felt longer. The city blurred around her, faces, lights, voices, all distant. The weight of truth pressed heavier with every step. At her door, a single envelope waited. No name, no stamp. Inside, a photo. Her apartment, taken from across the street. And a message on the back. "You're not the only one watching." Lena looked up sharply. The street was empty. The shadows still. But the silence had teeth now. She closed the door, locked it twice, and slid the bolt. The earpiece waited on the table. She picked it up. Her reflection in the window watched as she whispered, "Navarro, I'm in." The light on the device blinked green. The hunt had begun. The earpiece hummed once. Then a voice, low, familiar, threaded with caution. "Lena? Confirm your channel." Her breath caught. "Confirmed." Static bled through, Then Eli Navarro's voice sharpened, steady as she remembered. "Good to hear you again, Captain." "I'm not your captain anymore." A pause. "Then let's just say I'm glad you answered." Lena paced the narrow stretch of her apartment, eyes flicking to the window where the city glimmered in fractured light. "You said it's starting again. Tell me everything." "Not here," Eli replied. "You're being monitored. Meet me at Pier 6, North End, near the freight cranes. Midnight." The line went dead. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It vibrated, alive with danger. Lena slipped the earpiece into her pocket, grabbed her jacket, and turned off the lights. If they were watching, she wouldn't make it easy. The city shifted after dark. Neon signs flickered like wounded stars. Rain-slick alleys mirrored the glow of passing headlights. Crescent's underbelly breathed secrets through broken vents and quiet footsteps. Lena moved through it like a ghost, silent, measured, aware of every shadow that moved too close. Each face could be a threat, each corner an ambush. The instincts she'd buried pulsed awake. By the time she reached Pier 6, the docks were deserted except for the low hum of machinery and the rhythmic crash of waves against steel. Salt air mixed with diesel, sharp and heavy. Eli waited near a stack of cargo crates, his coat drawn tight against the wind. When he saw her, something flickered behind his eyes. Relief, regret, maybe both. "You came," he said. "I need answers." He nodded once. "Then you'd better sit." They ducked behind the crates, hidden from the cameras lining the pier. Eli pulled a folder from his bag, water-stained and sealed with black tape. He peeled it open and spread the contents on a crate lid. Surveillance photos, schematics, coded manifests. "This," he said, tapping the top sheet, "is Project Ember. You led the original strike to dismantle it." Lena's stomach tightened. "Ember was buried years ago." "So we thought. But someone revived it under a new name. Same players, different faces." He slid a photo across. Logan Price's father, standing beside a man in a dark suit, face half obscured. "That's our leak," Eli said. "A contractor posing as a logistics executive. He's funneling stolen prototype tech through Crescent Institute's labs, laundering it as research shipments. The lab incident, your fight, wasn't random. They were testing your identity." Lena scanned the images, pulse quickening. "They wanted confirmation that I'm still who I was." "Yes. And now they know." Wind howled through the pier, rattling loose chains. Lena's eyes narrowed. "If they revived Ember, they're building something worse." Eli's silence was answer enough. She exhaled, a slow, steady breath that tasted like old battles. "You want me to infiltrate again?" "I'm not asking," he said softly. "I'm warning. They'll come for you either way. Better to face them with allies." Her gaze drifted toward the dark horizon. "You don't know what it costs, Eli. Every time I fight, I lose another piece of myself." He looked at her, voice low. "Maybe what you lose isn't you. Maybe it's the lie you've been living." The words cut deeper than he knew. Before she could answer, a noise broke through the wind, a metallic scrape from the far end of the dock. Eli stiffened. Lena turned, eyes narrowing toward the shadows between the containers. A figure moved, swift, deliberate. Then another. "Company," she murmured. Eli reached inside his coat, but Lena lifted a hand. "No weapons. We don't show them fear." 3 shapes emerged from the dark, faces hidden behind reflective visors, bodies wrapped in matte black. No insignias, no sound but the crunch of boots on wet steel. One stepped forward, a distorted voice from beneath the mask. "Captain Wolf, you've been summoned." Lena's muscles coiled. "By who?" The figure tilted its head. By those who remember Ember. Eli shifted closer to her. You're not going anywhere. The masked figure ignored him, eyes fixed on Lena. Refuse, and they'll take everything you've rebuilt. The words hit their mark. Lena's hand twitched, then stilled. Her voice came calm, sharp as glass. Tell them I'm not hiding. The figure nodded once. Then be ready. They turned, melting back into shadow as silently as they'd arrived. The silence that followed was deafening. Lena's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Eli cursed under his breath. They're not bluffing. They'll move fast. I know. He gripped her shoulder. Come with me. We can disappear. No. She pulled away. Running makes me pray. I've been prey long enough. Her eyes hardened, gaze cutting through the fog rolling off the water. They want the soldier. Then they'll see what's left of her. Eli stared at her for a long moment, the wind tugging at his coat, then nodded slowly. If you're going back in, you don't go alone. Lena didn't answer. Her silence said enough. Hours later, back in her apartment, the city lights painted her walls in fractured gold. She spread the files across her table, the evidence forming a map of betrayal, faces, shipments, encrypted symbols. Her phone buzzed. Another message. We know who you were. Soon they all will. Lena's pulse steadied. She deleted nothing. Fear had no use now. She turned on the earpiece. Navarro, she said quietly. Find Sinclair. Tell her we move tonight. Eli's voice came back, cautious. Lena, once you cross that line, I already did. She slipped on her jacket, the weight of her past settling like armor. As she stepped into the hall, the door across from hers opened slightly. A neighbor, a quiet old woman who often left flowers by Lena's door, peered out, eyes soft. Rough night? She asked gently. Lena forced a small smile. Just a long one. The woman nodded, but her gaze lingered, as if she sensed the storm beneath the calm. Lena walked away, the hallway light flickering overhead. Outside, the city exhaled, a low, restless hum that felt almost alive. Somewhere beyond the skyline, old ghosts waited, and this time, she wouldn't run. In the reflection of a darkened window, her own eyes stared back, steady, unflinching. The wolf had returned. Night swallowed Crescent City whole. Streetlights flickered like fading stars as Lena Ward moved through the narrow back streets toward the East District. Every footstep echoed off wet asphalt, her reflection ghosting across puddles like a shadow chasing itself. The earpiece hummed faintly, a pulse of life in the silence. Navarro, she whispered. Status. Static hissed, then Eli's voice crackled through. I've tracked Sinclair. Abandoned substation near the river. No heat signatures except hers. But Lena, be careful. Someone's intercepting our channels. Then keep talking like they're listening, she replied. Let's give them a story. She killed the line before he could answer, tucking deeper into the hood of her jacket. The night smelled of metal and rain. Somewhere, a siren wailed, swallowed by distance. The substation rose ahead, a relic of old industry, walls veined with rust and ivy. A single light glowed through the broken windows. Lena slipped through the side door, silent as breath. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and memory. Cables hung from the ceiling like dead vines, humming faintly with residual power. In the center, Sinclair stood beside a table littered with files and circuitry, her expression carved from stone. You're late, Sinclair said. I was being followed. You still are. Lena froze. Sinclair gestured to a corner. A small camera blinked red, almost invisible against the dark. They've been tracing you since the pier. You're compromised. I know, Lena said. That's why I came. Sinclair studied her for a long moment, then nodded toward the table. Project Ember's rebirth wasn't just about weapons. It's about control. She flipped open a folder. Inside, blueprints detailed a series of microchips, each marked with an unfamiliar sigil, 3 intersecting lines, forming a fractured circle. This tech, Sinclair continued, can hijack data streams, rewrite surveillance networks, erase or rewrite digital identities. It started as a defense project, something you helped secure, but now it's being sold. To who? To anyone with enough money to disappear. Lena's chest tightened. And the Price family is funding it. Sinclair nodded. Their corporation built the shell companies. Logan's father acts as a middleman, but someone higher is pulling the strings. A name buried in every ledger. Rook. Lena repeated the word, tasting its weight. Rook. Never heard it. You have, Sinclair said quietly. Just not by that name. Before Lena could respond, a sharp click split the air, the unmistakable sound of a safety being released. Drop it, a voice ordered. Lena turned slowly. 2 masked figures stood in the doorway, rifles raised, movements clean, practiced. Not amateurs. Sinclair's hands lifted slightly, eyes narrowing. They're early. Lena's body shifted instinctively, weight balanced, breath measured. Who sent you? Orders aren't for questions, the lead replied. You're coming with us. Not tonight. She moved before he finished, a blur of motion forged by years of training. Her hand struck his wrist, twisting the rifle free as her elbow snapped back into the second's jaw. A flash of pain. A grunt. A crash of metal. Sinclair ducked behind the table as the first man swung wildly. Lena pivoted, using his own momentum to hurl him into the wall. The rifle clattered across the floor. The second attacker recovered faster than expected, drawing a blade. He lunged. Lena sidestepped, grabbed his arm, twisted. The sound of bone giving way echoed like thunder. He fell with a cry. The silence that followed was electric. Sinclair rose slowly, eyes sharp. Still quick. Quicker when I'm angry, Lena muttered, checking the men for insignias. None. Just blank armor. She retrieved a small device from one's pocket, a transmitter, blinking faintly. They're not here to capture, Sinclair said. They're here to track. The device emitted a soft tone. Lena crushed it beneath her boot. Too late. Outside, the growl of approaching engines filled the night. Sinclair's gaze hardened. We're out of time. Lena grabbed the files, shoving them into her jacket. You have an exit? Sinclair pointed toward a metal grate near the back wall. Utility tunnels. They run beneath the river. They dropped through the narrow opening, boots hitting damp concrete. The tunnels stretched ahead, dark, slick, humming faintly with old power lines. As they ran, Lena's thoughts churned. Rook, control, disappearing names, and her own identity, hidden, fragile, already cracking open. At the far end, the tunnel rose toward a maintenance door. Sinclair pressed a keypad, the lock disengaged with a hiss. They stepped into an alley bathed in orange light, steam rising from nearby vents. Sinclair caught her breath. They'll expect you to run, so don't. Lena turned, eyes cold. What do you suggest? Go back to the Institute. They've already infiltrated it. That's where you'll find your answers. You're sending me straight into their hands. Or into the truth. They stood for a long moment beneath the hum of distant traffic. Then Lena nodded. If I go down this path, she said, there's no coming back. Sinclair's voice softened. You never left. A faint vibration pulsed in Lena's pocket. The earpiece. She slipped it in. Navarro, she said. They're moving. Ember's alive. I have proof. Copy that, he replied. But Lena, someone breached my network. They know your address. Her blood ran cold. Who? Static. Then a voice that wasn't Eli's. Deep, smooth, familiar. Hello, Captain. We've missed you. The line cut. Lena tore the earpiece out, heart hammering. Sinclair's eyes narrowed. They found you. Lena stared at the dark sky above the alley, breath trembling. The war she'd fled had found her doorstep. The cost of silence had come due. When she reached her apartment, the door stood ajar. Inside, the lights were off. The air smelled of rain and cologne. On the table, the files she'd taken were gone. In their place, a single playing card, the rook, black against white paper. A message scrawled beneath it in sharp ink. Truth demands witnesses. She stared at the card, the silence pressing in around her like a held breath. For the first time in years, Lena Ward felt truly hunted. And somewhere in the shadows, someone laughed softly, a sound only the walls could hear. The storm had returned, and with it, the ghosts she could no longer outrun. The card sat like a wound on the table. The black rook stared up at Lena Ward, its ink edges sharp against the paper. She stood motionless in the dark, the apartment heavy with silence that didn't belong to her anymore. They'd been inside. Not just her space, her life. Drawers half open, papers shifted. A coffee mug turned upside down on the counter as if someone had considered staying for tea. Lena stepped carefully, scanning the room. No footprints, no fingerprints. They were ghosts that knew their craft. She picked up the card, fingers trembling not from fear, but recognition. Truth demands witnesses. It wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. She slipped the card into her jacket and crossed to the window. The street below lay still, washed in the glow of sodium lights. Somewhere, they were watching. She could feel it, that prickling between her shoulder blades, the quiet confirmation of being marked. She turned from the glass and reached for the earpiece. "Navarro," she whispered. "Talk to me." Static. Then Eli's voice, rough and urgent. "They hit my safe house. Took everything. I'm off-grid now." "Did they leave a message?" "Only a symbol. The rook." Her breath steadied. "Then we're out of time." "Lena, listen. Rook isn't a person." She froze. "What do you mean?" "It's an operation. A protocol from Ember's ashes, designed to erase whistleblowers, rewrite their records, smear their pasts, turn them into myths or criminals. They make ghosts, Lena, and you're next on the list." The room tilted. "They're rewriting me?" "They've started already. Media reports, internal memos, accusations you leaked data. They're building the story." Lena pressed her palm to the wall, steadying herself. Her silence, her effort to disappear, had become their weapon. The cost of quiet was erasure. "I won't let them finish the job," she said. "You'll need proof, real proof." "I'll get it." "Where?" Her gaze fell on the rook card again. Its ink shimmered faintly in the dim light, edges pulsing like circuitry. A code. A message. "The answer's in their design," she murmured. "Rooks protect the king. I'll find the king." Eli's voice softened. "You can't do this alone." "I have to. If they catch you, they'll use you against me." Before he could argue, she killed the line. The quiet returned, thick and waiting. She moved quickly, gathering what little she had left, a burner phone, lockpicks, a flashlight, and the pistol she'd promised herself she'd never use again. When she turned off the lights, the city outside reflected in the window, her own face fractured by rain. No more hiding. The institute was empty at night, the hallways echoing like cathedrals. Lena slipped through a side door, avoiding the main cameras, moving with the precision of a soldier walking through enemy territory. She reached the restricted lab wing, sealed during her suspension. A keypad guarded the entrance. She pulled a thin blade from her pocket, slid it into the slot, felt the tumblers shift, and pressed her palm against the scanner. The door clicked open. Inside, the lab was dark but alive, machines blinking in slow rhythm, screens glowing faint blue. And there, on the central console, the rook symbol again, pulsing softly on the display. She approached cautiously. The monitor flickered, lines of code unraveling across the screen. Access granted. Ember Protocol. Active. Subject. Ward. Lena. Status. Erase in progress. Her breath caught. Files flashed open. Her records, missions, photos from years past, each one dissolving into static. They weren't just rewriting her. They were deleting her. Lena slammed the keyboard, fingers flying. Commands overrode systems, forcing open subdirectories. Buried beneath the code, she found it. A hidden archive labeled Rook Master. She copied the directory onto a drive, heart racing. Behind her, a soft sound broke the silence. A step, then another. She turned sharply, gun drawn. A figure stood in the doorway, hands raised. Logan Price. His face was pale, his eyes wide, not with arrogance, but fear. "Miss Ward," he whispered, "you have to listen. They're after me, too." She didn't lower the gun. "You're part of them." "No." His voice shook. "My father is. He used me. The fight, it was staged. They told me to provoke you, to confirm who you were. I didn't know what they'd do next." "Why are you here?" He held up a tablet, screen cracked, trembling in his hands. "I found the shipments, the encryption keys. They're moving tonight. Military-grade components through the port. My father's meeting them." Lena's grip eased slightly. "Why help me?" "Because once they're done with you, they'll erase me too. I've seen the files." She studied him, the boy who once believed himself untouchable, now hollowed by truth. "Show me." He handed her the tablet. Coordinates blinked on the map. Pier 19. Midnight. Lena slipped the drive into her pocket, holstered her weapon. "You're coming with me." Logan swallowed hard, nodding. They moved through the corridors together, the Institute's hum following them like a warning. Outside, the city waited, wet pavement gleaming under fractured moonlight. Somewhere out there, the people who built Ember were watching, rewriting, erasing. Not tonight. As they reached the street, Logan stopped. "Miss Ward?" She turned. His eyes were wet, his voice small. "Were you really a soldier?" She met his gaze, calm and steady. "I still am." By the time they reached the port, fog had rolled in thick, swallowing the horizon. Lena crouched behind a stack of crates, eyes scanning the shadows. Logan shivered beside her, clutching the tablet. Engines rumbled in the distance. Headlights sliced through mist. A convoy approached, armored trucks, unmarked, humming with danger. Lena's hand hovered over her earpiece. "Navarro, Pier 19, it's happening." Static answered. Then nothing. She looked up and froze. Across the pier, under a single floodlight, a man stood waiting. Her breath caught. Eli Navarro. But his posture was wrong, his expression unreadable, and pinned to his chest, the Rook. The fog thickened. The trucks stopped. Somewhere, a clock struck midnight. Lena's hand tightened around her weapon. The board was set, and the game had begun. Fog wrapped the docks in a ghostly shroud. The convoy idled beside the water, engines humming like beasts waiting to strike. Lena Ward crouched behind a rusted container, her breath steady, her pulse a drumbeat in her ears. Beside her, Logan trembled, clutching the tablet as if it were a lifeline. Across the pier, Eli Navarro stood beneath the floodlight, his coat damp, his eyes shadowed. And on his chest, pinned over his heart, gleamed the black rook. Lena's world narrowed to a single question. Was this the man she trusted, or another ghost wearing his face? She rose slowly, gun in hand, voice low but unwavering. Eli, step away from them. He didn't move. Behind him, armed operatives emerged from the mist, silent, faceless, aligned in perfect formation. Lena, he said at last, his voice almost gentle. You shouldn't have come. Her finger hovered near the trigger. You're with them. I'm with survival. His eyes softened. Ours. She took a step forward. You think you can bargain with people who erase lives? They promised amnesty, he said. A clean slate. For both of us. Lena's breath caught, a flicker of grief threading through her anger. You traded the truth for silence. Eli's expression faltered, shame flickering behind his composure. I tried to keep you out. They wouldn't let me. Logan shifted behind her. He's lying. They're loading the crates now. Lena's eyes darted toward the trucks. Workers in black uniforms moved with precision, hauling containers stamped with the Ember insignia, repurposed, rebranded, alive again. She turned back to Eli. You were supposed to bury Ember, not sell it. His shoulders sagged. I thought I could control them. I was wrong. A sharp voice cut through the fog, commanding, cold. Enough. From the shadows stepped a woman Lena hadn't seen in years. Tall, silver-haired, eyes sharp as cut glass. Commander Vale, her former superior, presumed dead in the final Ember raid. Lena's stomach tightened. You, Vale smiled faintly. You always underestimated the board, Captain. You thought Ember died in the dark, but it adapted. And you were our finest weapon. I walked away. No one walks away, Vale said. You can vanish for a time, but the map always redraws itself. Lena steadied her voice. You built Rook. Vale inclined her head. We built a system, one that decides who matters and who disappears. You of all people should appreciate efficiency. They call it justice, Eli murmured, his voice hollow. They call it order, Vale corrected. And tonight, order is restored. She lifted a hand. Two operatives stepped forward, rifles raised. Lena's heartbeat slowed. She'd been here before, the line between surrender and defiance razor thin. The cost of silence heavy in her chest. She met Vale's gaze. You erase names. I remember them. Then she moved. A single pivot, a flash of motion. She struck the first rifle aside, fired once, twice, the echo cracking through the fog. Logan ducked as a round sparked off the steel beside him. Eli shouted something lost to the roar of engines. Chaos erupted. Lena rolled behind a crate, returning fire with deadly precision. Years of buried instinct roared to life, the soldier awake again, swift and relentless. Operatives fell. Smoke filled the air. The convoy lurched as a bullet shattered a fuel line, flames licking upward. Vale's voice rang out over the din. Stop her! But Lena was already moving, dragging Logan toward cover. Run! She hissed. He stumbled, clutching the tablet, darting toward the exit. Eli appeared beside her, face torn between loyalty and regret. Lena, you can't win this. I'm not trying to win, she said. I'm trying to end it. She shoved the data drive into his hand. "Take this. Get it out. Make them see." Eli hesitated, then nodded, eyes wet. "I'll try." "Don't try. Do it." He ran. Lena turned back toward the pier. Flames reflected in the water, painting the fog in gold and crimson. Vale advanced through the smoke, gun drawn, eyes cold. "This is pointless," Vale said. "You'll vanish like the rest." Lena steadied her aim. "Then I'll vanish loud." She fired. Vale fell back, her weapons skidding across the deck. The operatives froze, leaderless. Lena stepped forward, breath ragged, gun still raised. "It ends here," she said. Vale coughed, blood on her lips, a faint smile breaking through. "You can't kill a system, Captain." "No," Lena whispered, "but I can expose it." Sirens wailed in the distance, not theirs, real ones, police, media, witnesses. Logan had sent the coordinates. Vale's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "You—" Lena cut her off. "Truth demands witnesses." The floodlights blazed to life, washing the pier in white. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the crates, the weapons, the insignias. Rook's shadow unveiled. The operatives lowered their weapons. The game was over. Hours later, dawn broke over Crescent City. Smoke still curled from the docks, turning gold in the rising light. Lena sat on the edge of the pier, jacket torn, hair damp, hands trembling with exhaustion. Eli approached, limping, the drive still clutched tight. "It's done," he said softly. "The networks have the files. They can't erase you now." Lena's eyes stayed on the horizon. "They'll try." He sat beside her. "What now?" She thought of all she'd lost, and what she'd finally reclaimed. "The truth costs," she said quietly. "But silence costs more." Logan appeared a few feet away, watching her with hesitant respect. "People are talking," he said, "about what you did, who you are." "I'm not who I was," Lena replied, "but I remember her." Eli glanced at her. "So what will you do?" She rose slowly, the light catching her face, weary, scarred, unbroken. "Teach," she said, "but not in classrooms." She turned toward the city, wind lifting her hair, eyes steady on the horizon. "People need to know how to fight for what's real." Eli smiled faintly. "Then you're still the captain." Lena shook her head. "No, just someone who stopped being quiet." She walked into the dawn, each step lighter than the last. Behind her, the Rook card fluttered in the wind, burned at the edges, half ash, half memory. Its symbol cracked, its silence broken. The board had changed, and for the first time in years, Lena Ward was free.